All right, let's take a look at this right triangle problem. Find the missing length of the leg of the right triangle. The legs are the base and the height. They are the sides labeled A and B. Okay, they're not the hypotenuse, C. So I'm going to find one of these missing legs. It looks like we don't know A. So we're missing A, but they've given us B, the other leg, 40, and C, the hypotenuse, 41. So I'm going to label this real quick. This is 40, this is 41. We don't know A. So we're missing one of the smaller sides. So let's find the length of that leg. We're going to use Pythagorean theorem. With any math problem that uses a formula, you start by writing the formula as is. Then directly underneath, you're going to plug in what you know. Okay, I don't know A, so I'm going to leave it A. I do know B, it's 40, and I know C, it's 41. And you're just bringing all the squareds and everything else down. Okay, so A squared plus this big number equals that big number. We're going to need to pull up Desmos or some other amazing calculator. Okay, here we go. So we want to figure out what 40 squared is. Now, if you're a mental math person, you might do 40 times 40 with some mental math, right? You do 4 times 4, and then there are 2 zeros. So this should be 1600, but let's just verify that with Desmos. 40 squared, 1600. Okay, great. 41 squared, while we're at it, 1681. So now what we're going to do is we're going to plug in those numbers. We're rewriting 40 squared as 1600. We're rewriting 41 squared as 16, was it 84? Let's check. That's not the right one. Apparently I have 2 Desmoses up. Is the guy here?
No, I turned it off for Mickey because it was on for a long time.
Okay, I'm gonna keep recording.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. 1681. All right, so now we have to solve this equation. So if we're solving for our missing variable, A, we have to get rid of all this. So we're going to start by getting rid of that 1600. The way we get rid of 1600 is we subtract it. Right? If you have $1,600, the way you get rid of it is spending $1,600. So we're going to subtract 1,600 from both sides. And we get 81. Feel free to check that in Desmos. Now, for our final step, we're not finished till we get rid of that squared, that little 2. Okay, we're solving just for A, not A squared. So we need to get rid of that squared. We're going to take the square root of both sides. Squaring and square rooting are opposites. They are inverse operations, and they cancel each other out. So the square root of 81 is 9. Let's check it in our calculator. Move all this stuff. Here we go. Square root 81. There it is, 9. Let's see if it makes sense. Would 9 make sense there? It has to be less than this hypotenuse. It is, so it does make sense. It's very reasonable. The side of that triangle, that leg, is 9. All right, let's take a look at some right triangle problems. Find the hypotenuse, that's the longest side, if the legs, that's the other two sides, of a right triangle measure 6 centimeters and 8 centimeters. Okay, there is no picture. You need to start with a picture. Draw yourself any right triangle. And let's label the legs 6 and 8. It won't matter where you put them. Okay, as long as the hypotenuse is left blank because that's what we're trying to find. Okay, anytime we have a right triangle and we're finding a missing side, I want you to try Pythagorean theorem first to see if that works. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. When it works is when you have two sides and you're only missing one. So if you're only missing one side and you have a right triangle, do a squared plus b squared equals c squared. And the good news is this is intended to be like the small, medium, and large sides, A, B, and C. Just go in order. So I'm going to put 6 in for A. I'm going to put 8 in for B, and we are looking for the hypotenuse, C. So you're just going to plug in 6 and 8 and bring the formula down. From here, you can do some mental math. You can grab your calculator. Let me grab Desmos. You can use Desmos Scientific or Graphing. They both work. Gotta go the other way. Oh, good. There we go. It works. It's kind of down at the bottom, though. That's all right. Okay, so it's down at the bottom here. So what I'm going to do is 6, and then the squared button is here, a to the second. It's not going to do an a. It's just showing you that it's squared. And then we're going to do plus 8 squared. Since this is Desmos, it can handle this. It's a really great calculator. If you're using a phone calculator, it cannot do this. So use Desmos and save yourself some trouble. It does high school math really well. The TI-84 works really well too, but I would just use something you're comfortable with. But if you're using a phone or something else, Google's really good at everything except the calculator. It's awful. It will give you the wrong answer a lot. So if you're just doing a simple calculator like Google, you're going to have to do one thing at a time. You're going to have to type in 6 squared, and then that's 36. And you write that down. Oops. Write that down. Then you're going to do 8 squared, 64, and write that down. And then you're going to add them together, and it's going to give you 100. Okay, so one at a time if you don't use one of the approved calculators. All right, but let's go back. So 100 equals c squared. That is not the side length. You want to look for your side length to make sense. If this is really drawn to scale, and this is 6 centimeters and that's 8 centimeters, then this is not 100. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit bigger than 8, but it's not 100. So we just haven't finished our problem yet. The way in math that we get rid of squaring something, we do the inverse operation to solve for c. C is the hypotenuse. So to get c by itself, I have to get rid of squared. To do that, I'm going to square root, and whatever I do to one side, I have to do the other to keep it equal. So I square root both sides. These cancel, and your c comes down. You've solved for c. The square root of 100, you might have that memorized. It's 10, because 10 times 10 is 100. And 10 would make sense here. 6, 8, 10. Yes, those numbers are much more reasonable looking. Now let me pull up Desmos really quick. Okay, let me show you where the buttons are for square root of 100. Here's the square root button, and then you can put your 100. Square root of 100 is 10.